Good evening. Welcome back to this series of teaching on the 7 factors of awakening, and we are on the second module, looking at the quality of investigation of reality. And I thought maybe I'll start with just a bit of a review of what we covered so far in this module. I mainly focus on mindfulness. How we can apply mindfulness as a tool, as a means to help us to investigate, to inquire, and get to know things better, get the reality of our life, of our experience, the facts of our life. So we talk about mindfulness, such as being aware of differentiating when, in terms of our own experience, when we are sensing, that means our attention is preoccupied with information coming through the senses, the physical senses. So we are sensing, we are aware of what is happening here and now, as opposed to thinking, where the attention is drawn into thoughts. Thinking is a marvelous ability of the human mind, but sometimes it's good to have the skill of mindfulness to differentiate between these two mental activities, these two activities of our consciousness. Know when we are sensing and we are sort of attentive to what is happening through our senses, and when our attention is preoccupied with thinking. Thinking is not limited, so we can be thinking about the past, we can be thinking of the future, think of some imaginary things, daydreaming. We can be thinking in terms of planning, thinking in terms of evaluating, judging, or just maintaining an ongoing inner conversation. And also we can, with mindfulness, we can even investigate, to pay close attention to what are we thinking about, how are we thinking, what are we thinking. And so we can, almost like we listen in to hear better the kind of thoughts that we are attending to, or that we are nurturing, or we are caught up in. Sometimes we are lost in our thoughts. So we can tune in and investigate and see for ourselves what sort of thoughts are preoccupying my attention, and what sort of effects that those thoughts have on me, on my body, on my mind, and also to see whether are those thoughts relevant. Are they factual? Are they accurate? Or are they distorted? And what sort of impact they have on my own well-being, on my behavior as well. So, and I also introduce the idea of retrospective mindfulness. So, not only can we be mindful of in real time what is happening here, be sensing or thinking on details of our thoughts, but sometimes we can also look back and retrospectively be mindful of, especially how we react to an incident, the kind of thoughts that flow through our mind, the sort of feelings and things that are stirred up by a particular incident, and how we behave or react. In the heat of the moment, it might be hard to be aware and to investigate and to see clearly. So after a while, with a separation in time, not so much in space, also in space, maybe you're in a different location, then you look back and you can investigate. You can, by bringing to mind, by recollecting, what was I thinking, what happened, what didn't happen, how did I behave, how did I react to that situation. We can investigate. We can see clearer for ourselves whether our reactions is appropriate, or is it have I overreact, and whether is it successful, effective in solving the problem, help me to lessen the suffering or enhance my happiness, or maybe it's the other way around. It aggravates the situation, escalate the situation, make things worse, increase my suffering, destroy my own happiness. So we can apply retrospective mindfulness to investigate a situation and my behavior, my reaction to that situation. And this can, but also we don't have to do it in a negative sense. We can also recollect something positive, bring something positive to mind. Like, for example, I have introduced the practice of recollecting our own actions or deeds of generosity and ethics. And by bringing some of these wholesome actions to mind, we are also, in a way, investigating and inquiring. But in this case, nurturing the positive aspects of ourselves, the positive habits, the wholesome qualities. So these are more like the mechanism, how we go about investigating, getting to know reality better, help us to see things clearer, which is very helpful because especially within the Buddhist context, the source of our suffering is often traced back to our misunderstanding, misperception of reality, misconception that we hold on to in the form of views or beliefs or opinions that are not in touch with reality, so distorted. And they have this distorting effect on everything else. So it distorts our perception, distort our thinking, and we tend to react and behave in ways that actually detrimental to our happiness and well-being. And these are why we want to investigate, want to see clearer what exactly is happening. Is it effective? Is it efficient? Or maybe not? And last week I started on, so instead of the mechanism of investigation, then the topic of investigation. And there is a list of the general characteristics of reality that's really helpful for us to make as an object of focus to really investigate, see for ourselves, and to bring it to mind. These are the facts, the basic facts of our life, of our reality. And by bringing them to mind, for us to reinvestigate them, to reacquaint ourselves with them, we are almost like trying to put right what has been sort of a bit lopsided or distorted or mistaken. Put right our view, some of our beliefs, some of the opinions, that we might cherish and deeply held. A lot of which probably come from our early life experiences, influenced by the people around us, influenced by our culture, our religion, our family, and the place, the locations, the people we hang out with. So we have internalized some of these beliefs, some of these views and opinions about ourselves, about others, about life in general. And now it's a good time to take another look at them, investigate them, because some of them for sure are the contributor of our suffering, of our problems, and they continue to create problems for us, especially when we become so habituated to them. They manifest in the form of a very habitual reactions. We all have different habituated strategies of dealing with the different things in our life. And some of those strategies may be, at one point, quite helpful, enable us to survive, to get through a difficult patch. But now, to persist in them, they are really causing us more suffering and more problems. So it's good to inquire, investigate. And most of it has to do with misunderstanding or misperception of some of the fundamental facts of life. Or we are in denial, so to speak. Or we are holding on to some false idea, wrong ideas that actually contradict the facts of reality. And so take the example, last week I introduced the general characteristics of impermanence. So very important characteristics, emphasized a lot in Buddhist teaching, which is the background myself and of this series of teaching, to awaken ourselves from the sleep or the ignorance, sleep in the metaphorical sense. Part of it is to awaken ourselves to our false ideas or holding on to permanence. We have this instinctive kind of reaction that we want things to not change, to be permanent. It's a very strong instinct in and among ourselves because we associate permanence, the absence of change, to be something safe, something constant, safe, something we think is necessary for us to be happy, to be at peace, to relax, to be at ease. Right? Unfortunately for us, the reality of our life, the reality of our experiences, the reality of all the things and events around us confirm that we are wrong. They are not permanent. They are not unchanging. In fact, life is changing. Experiences are changing. Conditions are changing. People around us are changing. Situations are changing. The reality is actually one of change as opposed to uh, lack of change, or as opposed to permanence. And by holding on to this wrong idea, we are creating a lot of trouble for ourselves. We are also increasing the suffering. Whether we like it or not, when we come have a head-on collision with reality. Are we holding on to the idea of not liking change, not wanting change, clash head-on into the reality of change? There's nothing we can do about it. Things change. Even though we don't unwilling, we don't like it, we disagree with it, we are powerless against the fact of reality. And we are only increasing our own agitations, anxiety, our fear, our unhappiness by insisting to hold on to the wrong idea. So the general characteristic of impermanence is a very important one to investigate for ourselves, to inquire into. And mainly is to help us to develop a certain conviction in this truth, that this is a fundamental fact of life, that things change. I change, my experiences change, the world is changing. A change is more fundamental than the absence of change. And the whole idea of this investigation into the general characteristics of impermanence is to help us to uncover our distorted perception, our mistaken belief, all these opinions and views that we hold strongly to that turn out to be wrong. We want to dispel them. We want to replace them with something that is factually accurate, that actually help us to deal with the reality itself instead of sidetrack us, instead of distorting our perception and thinking, and sort of get us caught up in lost in kind of a fantasy world, and we are not actually effectively dealing with life itself. So that is the rationale behind this, and there's a whole series of a list of different general characteristics that we are encouraged to investigate for ourselves. It's not enough for this, with regard to such characteristics, to just believe in them, or to just swallow in and say, yeah, I believe you, life is impermanent, everything changes. Unfortunately, that is not good enough, because just merely accepting the concept and able to repeat it or even explain it to others, like what I'm doing, explaining it, that in itself means that it only stays in the intellectual level of our knowledge, stays in a very conceptual way. So in a certain context, yes, I can talk a lot about it, but outside of that context, I would completely forgot about it. No, and the deep-seated habits and beliefs are still intact within me. So much so that when I personally encounter change, a certain kind of change, I find that I'm ill-equipped to deal with it. Still the same old habits, same old conditioning will manifest, the same old way of reacting inappropriately to change. So I might, as a way of resisting the change, I dislike the change. I might, on one hand, in certain cases, I might act out, get really upset and angry. I may even vent it outwards on others. Other time, I might withdraw. I might feel fear and anxiety, and sort of trying to deny it, trying to run away from it. So those are habitual reactions that I might have. And if my understanding of this characteristic of impermanence stays only at the intellectual level, a lot of these habitual tendencies, which are more on the emotional level, you can say, I may involve thoughts as well, thoughts and feelings and emotions, but we can say it's more on the unconscious level, not something that I do deliberately. It's just sort of been triggered, remain intact. and still exert tremendous impact on me and on my experience, on my behavior. So we want to somehow bring a conceptual idea that we understood intellectually and let it sink all the way down figuratively to the heart or even to the gut, so that we are actually changing deep down within us the way we view things, change our view, change our habitual way of thinking, perceiving, and reacting to things. So let's revisit the characteristics of impermanence. And the way to, a very simple way of working with impermanence is simply to notice it. Apply what we learned about mindfulness, but apply it here in this context and be mindful of impermanence, the evidence of impermanence, mindful of change, which is not so difficult. It just need to sort of expand the scope of awareness a little bit. Like for example, I'm going to invite you to join me to do a meditation that I call touch and release. So synchronize with the natural breath, with the in-breath. I'm going to invite you to return your attention to here and now, primarily to our own body, to be in touch with our own body, to be in touch with the sensations of the body, to be in touch with what is happening here and now. So that is the in-breath, to be in touch. And the out-breath, I'm going to invite you to just say this magic word in your mind, release. We're not trying to do anything consciously and deliberately, but instead we are setting up a condition so that each time I breathe out and when I notice it, I will remind myself with the word release. And why? I'm actually trying to convince deep down my own body, my own mind, as well as all those reactions that have been triggered. Hey, it's all right. We can release. Just as we breathe out and let something go, let go of carbon dioxide. Maybe my body can release some of those unnecessary reactions in the form of tension and tightness. Maybe some of them can go, we don't need it. Maybe the mind can also release some of the reactivity in the form of agitation, in the form of busy thinking, ruminating, maybe not necessary. And maybe they can also disappear along with the breath. So touch and release, going through the whole body, each part of the body to be in touch with the sensations here, on the in-breath and with the out-breath, just once again a reminder to my own body and mind that they can release. I don't know what they're going to release, I don't know when they're going to release, I don't know how they are going to manage this process of release. We don't need to know, because it's a natural process. We just need to by applying a reminder, just to create a condition to stimulate this process of change, release. By applying this meditation, not only does it help us to settle deeper into our own meditative states, but also I invite you along the way to notice change. Notice the change in the conditions of your body, the change in the conditions of the feelings, the kind of feelings that you notice, pleasant or unpleasant, and the change in the conditions of your own mind. So also that at the end of the meditation, are you able to notice anything change? Change can be in the positive direction, more relaxed, more calm. Change can be in the opposite direction, more tense, more tight, more unpleasant feelings, more agitated. Either way, it still fulfill the aim of this meditation, which is to be in touch with impermanence, with change, and to sort of almost like gathering evidence as we meditate that, oh yeah, it's true. Things change, experiences change. Tension can be relaxed and released and disappear, and likewise the body can also tense up. From a relaxed state, can revert and tense up again. Very simple fact that now that I talk about it, everybody can appreciate and know about it. But that's not the main point. The main point is, of course, intellectually we know about it, but we want to directly experience it, directly notice it and be aware of it. And each time we notice and we are aware of it, it's like sending a piece of evidence deep within ourselves to the so-called heart and gut. And we are trying to change the habitual tendency, try to habituate them to the fact of change, try to release some of those old ideas and old beliefs, and try to let in new ideas, new way of relating to change. So that's what we are trying to do. We are basically investigating impermanence, gathering evidence repeatedly in our own personal experience in order to effect change deeper within ourselves. So that is the theory, and I invite you to join me. Let's do a meditation on touch and release, and with the emphasis on becoming aware of the characteristics of change, and to see for ourselves, how often does change happen, in what way does change happens in our own experience. And as we accumulate more and more of such evidence, I'll be convinced eventually that things change. Good experience can arise and can also fade away. Bad experience can arise and also fade away. And over a period of time, we might eventually come to be convinced, and we start to view things, perceive things through the lenses of change. We start to feel and think through the lenses of change. And we also respond in a way that is appropriate to this fact that everything changes. Right? So first of all, let's start with posture. So I invite you to settle yourself into a suitable, comfortable posture. Posture also reflects change. One day maybe sitting up is perfect for you, and another occasion maybe lying down is the better posture for you at that occasion. So even posture is subject to change depending on the changing conditions of our own body. So as we allow our body to settle into meditation posture, take care to check in and make sure that your back, your spine feels comfortable in this posture, that the posture has not introduced unnecessary pain or discomfort into your body, especially to your spine. Rest the hands and arms on some solid support so that the weight of your hands and arms can be transferred onto the support, and you don't have to tense up your shoulder muscles or arm muscles during the meditation just to hold up your arms. Feel free to close your eyes completely, or leave them open or half open, whichever way suits you. And let's give our body a few moments to just adjust, to get used to, and to begin to settle down and be comfortable in this meditation posture. By becoming aware of how the body in this posture is resting on a solid, firm, and stable support, be it on the chair, on the ground, or on a firm bed, or see if we can convince the body that in this posture it is quite safe, well supported, well balanced. And really there is no need for the body to be so tight, so tense, so contracted. And as this message gets through to the body, we may notice a change. A change may happen slowly at first. The body may start to loosen up a bit, unwind a bit. It can let go of some of the unnecessary contractions and tightenings. And as a result, we may find that our body is shifting, changing, and really settling down and be more and more comfortable in this meditation posture. So as we are going to make use of the breath as a support for our attention, a place where we can always return our attention to see if we can start by getting in touch with the breath sensations throughout our body. Allow ourselves to be aware, to experience the in-breath and the out-breath. Don't feel that you need to localize your attention at a particular spot. Instead, just allow the general movements and sensation associated with breathing at the different parts of the body to come into your awareness. Breath sensation seems to be like a wave-like movement, rising, falling, expanding, contracting, flowing in, flowing out. See if you can tune into this wave-like movement of breath sensations at the many different parts of your body. There is no such thing as the perfect breath, so just allow the breath to move at its own pace, in its own way. The breath could be fast or slow. It seems to be very shallow or deep. Breath could be long or short. And that is perfectly fine. We don't have to deliberately adjust it or control it. Simply allow the body to breathe itself. And all we need to do is, with the help of the rhythm of the breath, synchronize with the breath, breathing in, see if we can invite our attention to come back here and now, to be in touch with our own body, starting at the crown. Breathing in, be aware of sensations at the crown. Just a light touch, no need too much effort. And then breathing out, remind ourselves with the word release. So breathe in, be in touch. Breathe out, release at the crown of the head. And then moving on, release our attention from the crown, allow it to alight on the forehead, somewhere between the two eyebrows. Just a light touch. Breathe in, be aware of sensations at the forehead, and also sensations at the rest of the face. Breathing out, release, reminding our own body and mind that they can release anything unhelpful or unnecessary. So for example, at the face, being in touch, maybe we notice tension in the face. So we have unconsciously tightened the facial muscles. With the out breath, as we say the word release, is a wonderful opportunity to invite a positive change to come in. Allow a different feeling of softness, of ease and relaxation to come into your face. Next, moving on, allow attention to be in touch with the throat, such as breathing in, we are aware of sensations here at the throat, at the neck. Breathing out, we can release. Shifting onto the right shoulder, this bigger spot. Breathe in, be in touch with sensations at the right shoulder. Breathing out, release. Notice sensations here at the right shoulder, and also notice any change in those sensations, those feelings. Moving on, allow attention to be in touch with the right elbow. Breathe in, be in touch with subtle sensations here. Out and release at the right elbow. And feel free to move at your own pace. You don't have to follow my pacing. Moving on to the right wrist. Breathe in, be in touch with this part of the body, subtle sensation at the right wrist. Out and release. And notice the sensations and any change in the sensations. Moving on, allow attention to flow into the right hand, such that as we breathe in, we are in touch with sensations in the right hand. As we breathe out, once again, we release. See if we can give permission and release the entire weight of the right arm and hand. Simply allow the weight to rest comfortably on the physical support. Switching side, allow attention to alight at the left shoulder. Just pick a spot, breathe in, be aware of sensations here at the left shoulder, out and release. By now, occasionally, some of us may experience a slight pleasant feelings of relaxation. If that is triggered, if this change comes into our awareness, see if we can welcome it in. Let the pleasant feelings be here and allow ourselves to enjoy them while they're still present. Moving down to the left elbow, touch and release at your own pace. Moving down to the left wrist, touch and release. Allow attention to flow into the left hand. Breathe in, be in touch with sensations here in the left hand. Out and release. Release the weight of the left arm and hand. Surrender the weight to gravity and simply allow it to rest comfortably here and now on its support. And then shift our attention to the chest, the center of the chest, at what we call the heart center. Breathing in, be aware of sensations here at the heart. Breathing out, release. Touch and release at the different part of the body. See if you can, in your own experience, become aware of change in sensations, change in the different experiences, hopefully maybe in the direction of settling down, increasing sense of relaxation, ease, but occasionally maybe in the opposite direction. And either way, see if we can appreciate how through meditation we actually bring about changes in the body, in the mind, in the feelings. Moving further down to the abdomen, just slightly below the navel. Breathe in, be aware of sensations here at the abdomen. Breathe out, release. Moving further down, rest our attention at the base of the spine, at the tip of the tailbone. Breathe into this place, be aware of sensations here. Breathe out and release. Release the weight of the pelvis. Simply allow the weight to rest comfortably on the seat and surrender it to gravity. Moving down the leg, starting from the right hip joint. Breathe in, be in touch with sensations at the right hip. Just pick a spot if you cannot be sure. Breathe in, be aware of sensations here at the right hip. Breathe out to remind yourself, your body and mind, that they can release. Moving on to the right knee, touch and release at your own pace. Moving down to the right ankle, touch and release. And then moving into the right foot, touch, be aware of sensations in the right foot, and release. Release the weight of the entire right leg. Allow that to rest on the floor or whatever support it is on. When you feel ready, switch to the left side, starting from the left hip joint, touch and release. When our attention is distracted elsewhere, which is a normal thing to happen, simply invite the mind to come back, synchronize with the breath, to be in touch with, at this moment, the left hip joint, and then continue on from there. Moving down to the left knee, touch and release. Moving down to the left ankle, touch and release. And then finally, let attention flow into the left foot to be in touch with sensations here, and on the out breath to release. Release the weight of the left leg, allow it to rest comfortably on its support. And now that we have gone through the entire body, parts by parts, rest the body in the meditation posture. Allow it to continue to unwind, to release, to settle down, and be comfortable in the posture. Rest our mind here, and now in touch with the breath sensations in the body, in touch with other bodily sensations that may arise and come into awareness. in touch with feelings, especially any pleasant feelings, interesting feelings triggered by the meditation. And on the out breath, again and again, simply remind yourself, remind your body and mind, your system, to deepen the sense of release. So for the last few minutes of this meditation, as we continue to allow body to settle down, as we allow the mind, the attention to be here and now, and to come back here and now, to be in touch with sensations, with the breath, with the body, with feelings, maybe also with the mind. And on the out breath, to deepen the release. See if you can appreciate and also notice and be aware of the changes that have happened during this meditation and still happening. Changes in your experiences of the body, of the mind, changes in feelings and sensations, and continue to be aware, to track as the changes continue on and on. Okay, so there is meditation on touch and release, which is one of my favorite meditation because of change. And I find that with this method, at least for myself, it's easy for me to trigger changes in my own experiences. It's not always pleasant, but nonetheless, the fact that things change is a good sign. That means the method I use are able to influence the conditions of our own body and mind. And of course, with practice, we become better and better at influencing it to go in a certain direction. Of course, never guarantee, but so far I find that I'm getting better, at able to facilitate this process of release and able to facilitate the process of arising of helpful experiences, positive experiences. And this is the positive aspect of change. Change is not always a bad thing, it's not always a bad word. And in fact, we ought to be appreciative that things change. So we are not stuck, we are not hopeless, or we don't have to descend to despair, but instead we can create the conditions, bring together the conditions for positive change. Okay, so today I want to introduce the second general characteristics, a bit much harder characteristic to appreciate, and follow on from the fact of impermanence of change, precisely because all our experiences, all human experiences are impermanent and subject to change, precisely because human experiences are conditional phenomena. They arise dependent on certain sets of conditions, and conditions by definition, by nature, are impermanent, changing. That's why when the conditions change happen, and when certain conditions come together, we have different experiences. And precisely because they're dependent on changing conditions, so those conditions will not stay static. They're not stuck. Over a period of time, they start to shift and change, and when the change is sufficiently great, then of course those experiences fade to be replaced by new experiences. And so within the general characteristics of impermanence and change, embedded in it is yet another fact that independence on changing experiences, changeable experiences, conditional experiences, we cannot find lasting satisfaction. And they do have temporary satisfaction, temporary pleasures. So, for example, just now, that meditation, let's say, if it has gone pretty well and we feel quite settled, quite relaxed, so there are nice feelings arise that accompany that meditation, the meditative state. And that is precisely because it's dependent on changing conditions. And our meditation practice helps to shift those conditions and bring about these new experiences. Let's say a sense of relaxation, sense of settling down of the body, of the mind. In my case, I even feel some nice, interesting sensation, buzzing sensation arise, which is very nice, which is welcomed. But while these sensations are here, I can enjoy them. I can really appreciate and feel happy, about it. But nonetheless, that is short-lived. Now that I finished my meditation, I start talking, and even later on, as I start moving around and doing other things, a lot of the effect would have faded, to be replaced by other. And so, just on the basis of that pleasant meditation alone, I can derive certain benefits, certain satisfaction, but that satisfaction is not long-lasting. In other words, it's not permanent, it's not constant, it's not going to be around all the time. It's going to fade and disappear and replaced by other feelings, other experiences. So that is true for all of the experiences we have in relation to the different objects that we encounter, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, through touch, through the body sense, through thoughts, precisely because those pleasant feelings, pleasant experiences, or even what we may call happy encounter, happy occasions, are dependent on changing conditions. Changing conditions by nature change. They don't stay static. And so those happy experiences, while they're here, wonderful, but they cannot be the source of lasting satisfaction. They cannot bring us a long-lasting sense of fulfillment and satisfaction because they fade, they change. So if we were to look for lasting happiness, long-lasting, happiness forever, as the fairy tale tends to say, at the end, they live happily ever after. Forever. Forever is a very, very long time. Unfortunately for all of us, it isn't forever. Whatever pleasant feelings, happy occasions, wonderful, we can enjoy it while they're here. But because they are dependent on changing conditions, the coming together of changing conditions, which eventually they move apart, they change, they become something else. And that occasion shift and change. Those feelings shift and fade away. And so there is no lasting satisfaction to be found in impermanent objects, in impermanent experiences, and we are not to look for them. Otherwise, we will be greatly disappointed. And this is the second characteristic, general characteristic that is often mentioned in the Buddha's teaching, usually called dukkha or suffering, but really better to understand it as this lack of lasting satisfaction. Or sometimes people use the word unsatisfactoriness, which is a difficult mouthful to even to say. It's simply not to look for long-lasting or happiness forever in changing things. That's all. It's as simple as that. Changing things by nature must change. And so if you build hope, if you look towards it for constant happiness, it's not going to be able to fulfill that promise. It's going to disappoint us, and it's going to change and disappear. And so there is no long-lasting satisfaction and happiness in relation to or dependent on changing conditions, changing experiences. And that is the second characteristics. You may find it's a kind of strange one to draw our attention to, and why do I need to know this? What's the point? Wouldn't it be better to focus my attention on, what else can be more long-lasting, if not forever, but at least for a long, long time? Wouldn't it be better to look for better quality happiness, better quality satisfaction, more long-lasting? We sort of employ a more problem-solving approach to increase our happiness in this sense, to increase our happiness to just, how can I adjust the conditions so that they stay together for longer, or they're more stable. So that is our approach. And precisely because we think in this way, that's why the Buddha emphasized the very opposite. That all this attempt, which is what we have been doing all our life, we are doing precisely this. We have a problem, we're trying to solve it, we're trying to make our happiness more long-lasting, more bulletproof, more stable, more static. We try to get the conditions together and keep them together, prevent them from falling apart, prevent them from changing, so that we can hang on to the pleasure or happiness in whichever form for longer and longer. And that is our aim, our wish. And precisely because we have this tendency, precisely because we think in this way, we have this belief, this view, which is why the Buddha chose to emphasize the opposite as a general characteristic, as a fundamental fact of life, in order to get us to stop. Don't go down that route. It's not going to work. Don't try to artificially prolong some happiness, intensify happiness, fixate and somehow fix the happiness so that it's permanent, it's constant, it always be here. In fact, some of us go to extreme to do that, and that, of course, is a condition of addiction. Addiction is to will from a particular way is to keep having that pleasure, regardless of what is the source of that pleasure. Keep having it, have more of it, and when I run out or the happiness fade, immediately go out and get another dose. Increase it. The whole idea is to try to somehow, patch it up our experience so that it's constant, or as constant as possible, as steady as possible, that we will always be happy. And the Buddha said this approach is doomed to fail, which is why we are directed to contemplate, to reflect. You don't have to believe him, but give it a sincere attempt to understand where the Buddha is coming from and whether there is any truth in what he is suggesting. That he is saying this approach is doomed to fail. And in the midst of trying it out and approaching it this way and trying to secure for ourselves long-lasting happiness in this way, we subject ourselves to the problem of addiction. And we find that we get caught up in that craving. And addiction, as we all know, does not give us long-lasting happiness, does not give us the peace of mind, the sense of genuine satisfaction and ease and peace and well-being. Instead, in the name of securing happiness, in the name of prolonging and intensifying pleasure, we ended up destroying everything else. We destroy our own happiness, we destroy our health, we destroy our well-being, and not only that, we destroy the happiness, the well-being of the people that care for us, the closest to us. So it's an approach that may seem superficially to make sense and work, and which is why in different ways, in different arena, in relation to different objects or different experiences, we have been trying and trying and trying. So we are addicted to all sorts of things, addicted to computer games, addicted to, to drugs, of course, addicted to sex, addicted to gambling, all the different ways that bring forth some kind of pleasant feeling, pleasant experiences, and we are trying our best to hold on to it, to fix it, to prolong it, to stabilize it. And in the end, we still fail. And it makes for, unfortunately, a very miserable life. It's not actually a happy life, not actually a peaceful, happy, satisfactory life. It actually has the complete opposite effect on us, which is why the Buddha emphasized it is important for us to wake up to this fact, that if what it is that we are relying on is impermanent, is subject to change, then we must come to the point of understanding and acknowledging that there is no lasting happiness, no lasting satisfaction to be found in relation to those things. Doesn't mean that there is no pleasant feeling to be found, but those pleasant experiences, pleasant feelings are bound to fade, and there's nothing we can do to hold on to them. Right? And there's not advisable to try to go from one pleasant experiences to the next pleasant experience with no gap in between. That's what we try to do. And that is a recipe for great disappointment and failure. So this is the second characteristic. And implicit in it is the Buddha's pointer to a different kind of happiness, that more subtle, a different source, a different way of finding satisfaction, happiness, and peace. He is saying, instead of relying on impermanent phenomena, impermanent objects, impermanent experiences, things that depend on changing conditions and therefore have to change, instead of then attempt to resist change, try to hold things constant and hang on to them, hang on to certain feelings, try the opposite. Embrace change. Instead of resisting change, embrace change, accept change, acknowledge change, go along with change. And in the process of fully acknowledging, fully accepting change, and as experiences change, to find in the midst of change a different kind of happiness, a different kind of peace. Not the peace and happiness of constantly always having pleasures, pleasant experiences. No, that is not possible. No, find a different kind of happiness and peace that is actually unaffected, regardless of in that moment you are having a pleasant feelings and unpleasant feelings or neutral feelings, you will still be at peace, and you still be in an unusual way happy and satisfied and fulfilled. And so that is and precisely because it's not dependent, and it is not affected. No, I wouldn't say not affected, but it's not so strongly affected and dependent on changing feelings, changing circumstances. Precisely because of that, then you can find long-lasting satisfaction, peace, and happiness. About peace and happiness that are very different from how we imagine it to be. And that might be the path, a different way of going about achieving happiness and freedom from suffering. Right? So, but that is a long story. So we just stick to this basic fact of no lasting satisfaction in relation to changing conditions, changing experiences. And you may find that it's very depressing, and maybe it feels like a recipe for despair and hopelessness. Actually, it's not. In fact, precisely we know that this pleasure or this happiness or this wonderful occasions or wonderful relationships or encounter is transient. That in this moment is pleasant, but it's going to change, it's not going to last, precisely because we know it. Therefore, we cherish it for what it is, for its changing nature, for its transient nature, for its preciousness, and the fact that it's not going to repeat, it's not going to be able to, for me to hold it static and unchanged, precisely because it's going to change. While it's still here, I can cherish it. I can give it my full attention. I can enjoy the experience, enjoy the encounter, enjoy the company. I can enjoy it, appreciate it, and really be mindful and welcome the pleasure while it's here, while it's present. And then when time to say goodbye, to let it go, to be able to say goodbye and move on and to do other things. Instead of trying to hang on to it, I actually let go. But that letting go include a sense of appreciation, a sense of cherishing, and include giving full attention to what is unfolding here and now while it is happening. Wonderful, isn't it? And then later, when we look back, we can feel a sense of gratitude and gratefulness for having those experiences, those encounters, those opportunities. To be grateful for those relationships and interactions and those occasions where one or more people we are able to meet one another in a deeply meaningful and significant way, and we can appreciate them more precisely because they're impermanent, they are transient, they're subjected to change. So it's actually enhanced our sense of temporal enjoyment and satisfaction if we are mindful of their transient, impermanent nature. We value them precisely because they are transient. And so we are able to, while it's happening, to give it full attention. And subsequently, looking back, we feel a sense of gratitude. Gratitude that how lucky I am, in the sense that the conditions has come together and that I'm blessed with such experiences, such encounters. It makes for a very kind of a life of contentment, a life of full of the sense of gratitude and very positive kind of appreciation for all the opportunities, for all the people and all the conditions that we are able to enjoy and have company of, and that have somehow shared our journey of life before it comes to an end. So that's what I'm going to invite you to do, practice of appreciation, appreciating all the happiness and pleasure we have encountered in this life, however brief and short and faint, and most of it, in fact all of it, would have by now faded and changed and replaced by other things else, but that doesn't matter. Now we look back and we appreciate, precisely because they are of a changing nature, that when we have it, we appreciate that we have had that experience. We are blessed with it. And now that it's gone, we are left only with the memory. That doesn't matter. That's the nature of things. We we still feel happy that we remember it, and every time we recall it, it's not the same experience, but we can rejoice in having that, feel happy. We have a sense of joy, that all these experiences has come into my life and enrich my life and make it so unique and so unrepeatably of my own, and feel happy about it. So we feel happy about transient happiness. And in the midst of doing it, we can also appreciate that each one of those episodes that we can recall has changed, has faded away. The feelings are gone. The people may have gone. The place may have changed. The conditions have changed, a lot of which we can no longer go back to. We can no longer rejoin. We cannot revisit, some of which is gone completely. But nonetheless, having had it, and now we can remember it, we can recall it, we can appreciate it, right? So we're doing two things. We're appreciating the happiness, the pleasure that we have, in a way, so fortunate to experience. And we also appreciate precisely because we recognize that they are transient, they have changed, they have faded, they have disappeared, and we appreciate that we have ever have them. It becomes a part of our memory. And so in so doing, we are reflecting and investigating on the fact that changing conditions only bring temporary happiness, temporary pleasure, not lasting, not permanent happiness, but that is fine, because we can feel even more grateful precisely because of their transient nature. Right? So I'm going to invite you to do this meditation. Some of you may like to do it chronologically, start from the early days of your life and look back, look forward, and recall that whatever memories you have of happiness, of joy, of good fortune. I tend to do it randomly and just allow different occasions, different memories to pop into my mind, and then I dwell on it. Look at the details, recollect some of the circumstances, the people, maybe recollect also a bit of that wonderful feelings. Or why do you think it's so such a wonderful, good memories, or occasional happiness, or joy, or pleasure? That is entirely up to you. Just reflect a little bit. But in the midst of that reflection, see if you can also remind yourself that this is changing circumstances, changing conditions. And precisely those pleasure and happiness are transient and they fade. And now what we are doing is simply looking back and express a sense of appreciative joy for having had them, and that they have in one way or another impacted us in a positive way. And so let's do a meditation. My usual style, of course, with this kind of meditation is to use a set of phrases to guide myself as a way for my attention to be in touch with, to support my attention, and I can return my attention to it if I do get distracted. So my standard stock phrases for appreciative joy is may my happiness continue, may my good fortune not diminish. So you can use that or change the wording. So if you don't feel that you need the words, then you can forget about it. Right? So let's do a short meditation, and meditating on transient happiness. So as usual, settle yourself back into a meditation posture. So once again, we are going to investigate a fundamental fact of our reality, of our experiences, by way of recollection, retrospective mindfulness, and also by paying close attention to the details to see if we can highlight to ourselves the fundamental facts that independence on impermanent phenomena, impermanent changing conditions, no matter how happy, how joyous, how wonderful that occasion may be, and all the pleasures that arise, those pleasures, happiness, those satisfaction, they cannot last. But nonetheless, precisely because we have had them, we can still look back and express appreciative joy. So take a few moments, allow the body to settle into the meditation posture, to allow yourself, your body to feel at ease and comfortable in this posture. So previously we made use of the breath as a support in order to settle down. Maybe we can do that as well for the first few minutes of the meditation, reconnecting with the breath, the natural breath. Breathe in, be in touch with the sensations in the body. Breathe out and release. See if we can, for example, release any tension or tightness in the face. So often we unconsciously tighten the muscles of the face. And this is also a good place to begin the releasing process. As we have more conscious control over facial muscles, we can, when we become aware, encourage those muscles to relax, to let go, for us to welcome in a different set of feelings, one of softness, of ease and comfort into our own face. So coming back to the breath, breathing in, be in touch, be aware of sensations in the different parts of one's own body. Breathing out, deepen the sense of release. We can allow this process of settling down, releasing of body and mind, of reactivities, of agitation. We can allow it to continue in the background. Anytime during the meditation, if we do get very distracted, we can always come back to the breath, come back to the breath to stabilize ourselves, to get us grounded. Other than that, let's shift our focus to the meditation on appreciative joy. I recommend using a few simple phrases to guide, to serve as a support for our attention. Feel free to use your own words. My own stock phrases are, may my happiness continue, may my good fortune not diminish. And I usually start by just repeating the phrases mindfully as a trigger, dropping it into my heart and mind, and see whether it can stir up different memories, different images of the past, happy occasions, joyous moments. And feel free to do it in your own way. You can do it logically, chronologically if you want, or you can do it like in my way, a more randomized way. And the most important thing, as particular memories, a particular image surface, as we investigate it further, as we bring mindful attention to the details of that occasion, remember in this meditation, not only are we practicing appreciation, we practice appreciation while investigating the basic fact that independence on changing, impermanent conditions, there cannot be any lasting satisfaction. May my happiness continue. May my good fortune not diminish. We simply slowly at our own pace repeat the words, allow the words to invite forth into attention, some pleasant events, some happy occasion, so some wonderful opportunity we have enjoyed, and allow that to come into our awareness, allow ourselves to dwell on these details, maybe relieve some of the sceneries, the sights, the sounds, the feelings, the thoughts. Appreciate the happiness, the joy, the pleasure, and respond to it with the standard phrase, may my happiness continue, may my good fortune not diminish, as a way of rejoicing in having ever had this experience, but also remind ourselves that it is impermanent, that it has fade and disappear, and that there is truly no lasting, unchanging satisfaction. May my happiness continue, may my good fortune not diminish. Coming back to the words, if we do get distracted or confused or lost, just slowly, mindfully repeat the phrase a few times. Do not pressurize yourself and just allow the mind and heart to offer up different images, different memories for us to explore and investigate. May my happiness continue. May my good fortune not diminish. Coming back to the phrases of appreciative joy, may my happiness continue. May my good fortune not diminish. Sometimes it is precisely because of impermanence, because of change, because the fact that those people may no longer be here with us, those circumstances, those conditions, those places, including those of ourselves, our youth, our health, certain states, certain qualities, all of which have changed and fade away. And precisely because of such changing circumstances, we can appreciate, feel gratitude, feel blessed forever having those wonderful experiences of the past. May my happiness continue. May my good fortune not diminish. Coming back to the words, reminding ourselves, bring to mind other occasions of happiness, of joy, of pleasure, of good fortune for us to appreciate, to rejoice in. And just as the wording of the phrases, may my happiness continue, may my good fortune not diminish. And precisely because of things change, impermanent, maybe in the future there may be other gathering of conditions, coming together of people, arising of changing experiences that bring us other forms of happiness, other occasions of joy, as well as good fortune. So impermanence is not a bad news, and the fact that satisfaction is transient and not long-lasting may not be a problem at all. May my happiness continue, may my good fortune not diminish. And then to conclude this short meditation, let us gather up, imagine all the positive momentum we have created through tonight's session and meditations. And we dedicate that positive momentum towards the future, towards the fulfillment of our wishes and aspirations. And precisely because things depend on conditions, changing conditions. Therefore, by us creating the right conditions, bringing together all these different appropriate conditions, we can create in the future other experiences of transient happiness, of joy, and we may even be able to fulfill the goal of the Buddha's teaching to find a different kind of happiness, a long-lasting peace and happiness that is not dependent on changing conditions. To dedicate the merits, the positive potential towards fulfillment of your own wishes and aspirations, and may anything good and positive and helpful come out of all this practice and meditation may stay with us, linger with us in body, mind, and heart to continue to benefit us. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed that meditation. Although it sometimes can be a bit sad, that some of the wonderful things and good times may no longer with us, including the people, but that's the nature of our life, of our reality. We can look back, we can appreciate for having had their company, having shared those interactions and relationships, and to be able to cherish also what we already now have and look into the future. So I hope you have a good week ahead, and hope to see you back here next week. So good night.